audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to LaSmush.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon with you. Happy weekend, everyone. Welcome to the Sick Podcast. We're taking care of business right off the bat today. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Are you looking for the ultimate entertainment experience? Then look no further than Playground. From thrilling gaming and world-class poker to exquisite dining, live music, and electrifying DJs, Playground has it all, delivered with unmatched customer service. Conveniently located just minutes away from downtown Montreal, right across the Mercier Bridge. Why settle for less when you could have it all at Playground, your top destination for nonstop fun? Visit playground.ca for details. We're also brought to you by Bittt Tibi beer. Bittt Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer for those chilly winter days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% alcohol per can. Available in packs of 6 and 12 in grocery and dépanneurs across the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. And finally, we're brought to you by Betway as well. Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is available only for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario, and you must be 18 years or older. Please play responsibly. Okay, obviously the Canadiens haven't played since Sunday, and we got the Four Nations Faceoff going on. We're going to touch on all these things with my usual Friday guest. He is of the Montreal Gazette. He is Stu Cowan. How are you?
I'm doing really well. You get that sweatshirt from Arbor Jackeye?
No, I didn't get it from Arbor Jackeye, unfortunately. But hey, we're not sponsored by Costco, by the way, just so everyone's clear. It's just a very comfy sweater, and I love Costco. So Stu, listen, we were talking last week. We said, hey, if the Canadiens went 0-2 against those 2 games on Super Bowl weekend, it's all about a fait accompli, as we say in French.
Mm-hmm.
So where do they go from here? Because I'm kind of at a loss.
Yeah, now it's the trade deadline, March 7th. That's what to look forward to. 6 points out. 6 points out of the wild card spot. The last wild card spot isn't huge, but 4 teams between the Canadiens and the Red Wings for that spot is massive. So like even you can win 3 games in a row and not gain any ground if you have 4 teams ahead of you. So right now I think it's over as far as hopes of making the playoffs. I think now it's Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. They've had some time now to talk and decide what they're going to do, but I'm pretty sure now we're going to see Jake Evans get traded, Joel Armia get traded, David Savard get traded, Christian Dvorak get traded, and it's going to be a case of wait till next year and see what they can do over the offseason. You're going to have Ivan Demidov coming next season also. They were hoping they were going to be able to play meaningful games into March and April. Well, they were able to play meaningful games into late January and early February, but those back-to-back losses were killers, and there's nothing I've seen to make me think they're going to go on another roll like they did before, 13-3-1 or whatever it was there in that stretch to get back in the playoff mix. So that's where we stand.
Yeah, and you know what? It's amazing to think that how different. How it's funny, the chain of events. It's the butterfly effect, right? How different this season or this last stretch of games could have been if I remember that game against Toronto where they blew the 3-0 lead. And, if Cole Caulfield buries his chance to make it 4-0, or if Christian Dvorak buried his chance to make it 4-0, do they lose that game? I don't know. But if you go by that chain of events, if they kill the game at 4-0, where are they now? Obviously, all things being equal, Cayden Primeau still goes down, so that's a massive blow to the team. But in positive news, it's not all doom and gloom. Pascal Vincent today said that David Reinbacher is about 1 or 2 weeks away from being back in the lineup, which is just an incredible thing to see.
Yeah, and Laval's got the best record in the American Hockey League. So, we've spoken about this on previous podcasts. There's reason for hope moving forward with this team. And it's going to be interesting to see, too, not just the trade deadline, but the deadline for when players have to be sent down to Laval if they want to be eligible to play in the playoffs. It's usually like mid-March. That's going to be interesting to see how the Canadiens handle that also, because, the young guys like Owen Beck and Logan Mayo and that are probably better off going through a long playoff run, or hopefully a long playoff with Laval, than playing some meaningless games with the Canadiens down the stretch. But it's going to be a bit of a juggling act, too, because if they can't use trades, the guys I mentioned before, you still got to put 20 guys on the ice with the Canadiens, right? So it's going to be a bit of a juggling act for them to see how they handle that, how they decide who's better off going back to Laval. I mean, if they trade Jake Evans, I imagine Owen Beck will stay in Montreal and fill that role that Jake Evans has had. But Logan Mayo, playoff run, and Jeff Gorton spoke about this when he was on the Sick podcast, the eye test last month, how important it is to have young prospects experience what it's like to go through the playoffs in the AHL and win in the AHL. And he mentioned how Lou Lamoriello, when he was GM of the Devils, they always had a good farm team. How the Tampa Bay Lightning did the same thing when they had John Cooper coaching their farm team. And now with Pascal Vincent and Laval, it really is a remarkable job what Pascal Vincent has done, because I remember speaking with him at evaluation camp and training camp, and he was saying that this was going to be a tough season to start because there's so many young guys, so many guys their first year of pro hockey. It's a difficult adjustment. He thought it was going to be a difficult start to the season, or maybe they had better later on. And J.F. Houle said the same thing last year when he was coaching Laval. And that sort of was the case. They got off to a slow start, then they got better as it went on. But this season, right from the get-go, this team's been really good. They really have been. And that speaks volumes about the job that Pascal Vincent is doing. When Owen Beck, first time he was called up, I asked him, what Vincent was doing down there. He said he's just created a winning environment right from day one. It wasn't like, while he said it was going to be tough, he was telling these guys, let's go. We can, we have a team and we can do this. And they've been playing great hockey, and the fans are turning out in Laval. I was looking on their website the other day to take my son to a game coming up, and there's not many tickets left for any game. So, like, fans, it's a great arena to go watch a game. There's a lot of good young talent there. But, again, it's going to be a juggling act for the Canes to decide who they want to keep in Montreal through the end of the season, playing what are going to be meaningless games again, and who's going to go to Laval. And hopefully with this team, there's no reason to believe why this team in Laval can't go on a long playoff run, especially, of all people, the way Cayden Primeau has been playing since.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Cayden Primeau, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, but, it kind of sucks that he looks, as it stands right now, as what they call in baseball the quadruple A player. Too good for the minor leagues, not good enough for the major leagues. We've seen Charlie Lindgren. We saw him emerge as a nice little compliment to Logan Thompson in Washington, and maybe he'll develop a little further down the line. But it just seems like Montreal is not going to be the place for him to do that. So. We'll see, but good for Cayden Primeau. If anything else, this will certainly be helping his confidence. Because what is he? He's undefeated since he's come back down or something.
He's 10-1 with a 2.23 goals against average and a .910 save percentage. But I haven't seen Laval play many games. I've seen a few on TV. I imagine there's less defensive breakdowns there than there have been in Montreal. Just by looking at the team's record, he's probably getting less grade A chances on him. But you're right. I mean, I think, this is the last year of Cayden Primeau's contract, and I don't see him having a future with the Canadiens, especially with Jacob Fowler coming up. And they've obviously seen enough of Cayden Primeau in the NHL because, last season, the reason they went with 3 goalies, they were worried somebody was going to take him on waivers. That worry wasn't there this season when they had finally sent them down. So I think Jakub Dobiš is going to get more games as this season goes on. You got Jacob Fowler. I would imagine Fowler will turn pro after the university season ends this year and probably be the number one goalie in Laval next season. But for Primeau, good for him. I mean, real likable kid. Went through some tough times here. That 3-goalie system last year didn't help anybody. It didn't help anybody. It didn't help Montembeault. It didn't help Jake Allen. It didn't help him. And hopefully gets a start somewhere else, like as you said, what happened with Charlie Lindgren, and hopefully under less of a bright spotlight than there is in Montreal in a goalie. I think Cayden Primeau can succeed, because I think part of his problem here was the pressure playing in Montreal. He didn't get a lot of starts at home either. He played a lot of road games. I think the pressure just sort of ate him up here, and I think he'd be better off going somewhere else. And if he does, I hope he does well, just like with Charlie Lindgren.
Well, that's it. And these things happen. It's I know. Listen, the real side of it is they get paid a lot of money, so it comes with the territory. But when you're not performing at your job, normally that's just a conversation with your boss. You don't have 20 different microphones asking you why you suck.
And you don't have a red light that goes on behind you every time you make a mistake.
Exactly. I think
it's not your fault either. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, if he goes to, let's say, Florida, well, now Florida is a bit of a juggernaut, but if he went to Utah and, there's 2 reporters in his face after the loss, that's a lot easier to manage than 20 different reporters.
Well, I was talking with Mark Stone at the first day of the Four Nations Faceoff media availability in Brossard, and it was a media zoo, as you can imagine.
Yeah, of course.
And Sidney Crosby had about 100 reporters around. And when I was standing beside Mark Stone, and I said, imagine what it'd be like to be him for a day with that. And he laughed and says, we got one reporter who covers us in Vegas.
Well, there you go.
It's a different world. It really is. So for him to go somewhere where the spotlight isn't as bright, I think would help Cayden Primeau. And he's not the first guy to struggle in the spotlight in Montreal. Jonathan Drouin, there's a whole list of guys that just playing here is different than playing anywhere else.
So speaking of guys who aren't doing their jobs very well, the red light doesn't go when the red light goes on. It's not usually attributed to him, but another guy played last night for Team Finland was Patrik Laine. You know what? Patrik Laine, he missed a grade A chance. It was almost like the Habs power play setup. Yeah. He was set up for a one-timer, missed the net, but you know what I really liked was his response to that, in that he was visibly pissed off with himself that he missed that chance. So
he missed by much. It was a rocket. It was a rocket that he let go.
Well, that's it. So, hey, if this tournament is going to light a fire under him, and then he could bring that into the last quarter of the season with the Canadiens, all the better. But again, it was much of the same old story, in against Tampa and against New Jersey. Frankly, it was the entire team, not just him. Yeah. But, he wasn't exactly contributing in a positive way. So those struggles continue for Patrik Laine.
Yeah, and the Finnish coach, he's put him on the second line. He's playing with Sebastian Aho and Rupe Hintz, 2 good players. And the coach is saying that he wants 2 fast players, too. He's hoping those 2 guys will make Laine play a little quicker. He's not the fastest guy. You got to remember, he had a knee injury and missed a lot of time. And when he was originally named to Team Finland, he was saying how it was a good thing because he'd be able to keep playing, and helping him get back into, mid-season type of shape. And he had another good scoring chance last night, 5-on-5 in the slot. The goalie made a good save on him. And, I wrote a column after last night's game saying, the Canadiens, one thing I don't understand is how he's never had a chance since being in Montreal to play with Suzuki and Caulfield on the number 1 line. And I think he's wondering that too, and I think he's frustrated about it. And it's similar to what the Finnish coach said, playing with 2 quicker players, maybe he picks up his pace a bit. And also, Laine is not the kind of guy. Remember when Brendan Gallagher was in his prime? Whatever line wasn't working, you put Brendan Gallagher on it, and he made it work. Laine is not that player. He's not going to go on a line and make that line work. His line mates, he's a shooter, right?
Yeah.
His job is to get open, get the puck, and shoot it. And he's been playing most of the season with Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook, right? Now, Alex Newhook went 34 games to start the season without an assist, which is mind-boggling how a forward in the NHL can play 34 games without an assist. He's now got 8 assists in 56 games. Kirby Dach has 12 assists in 56 games. And those are the two guys Laine is playing with. Not exactly playmakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, to set him up. And so I understand Marty St. Louis is frustrated with Laine's effort level. But Laine he's a moody guy, right? I mean, that's the reputation he's had everywhere he's played. And the game against Tampa, there was one shift he came back to the bench. You could tell he was frustrated. He slammed his stick against the boards before going on. And good for Jake Evans getting a shot on the first line after they took Slafkovsky off. And Slafkovsky hasn't been lighting it up this year on that line either, right? And I'm sure Laine is wondering, man, am I ever going to get a chance to play with those guys? And so far he hasn't. And coming back from this break, especially if Laine, like I asked the coach after the game last night, the Finnish coach, he said he was okay, Laine. And he was okay. He wasn't great. But they had 2 more games at least in this tournament, including tomorrow against Sweden. And if he shows that he can play with those quicker guys at a pace that is incredibly faster in the NHL, when they come back, I think it's at some point you got to put them with Suzuki and Caulfield, even if it's for 3 games, and you say, we're putting you for 3 games, you show us that you deserve to play there. And then if he still looks lackadaisical and isn't working hard, then you got a real problem, right? But Patrick Laine is Patrick Laine, and he is who he is, and he's not the hardest working back checker, and he's not the fastest guy out there. But there's not a lot of guys in the world who can shoot the puck like him. And if you're going to play him with 2 guys who can't get him the puck, you're not going to get a lot of goals 5-on-5, and that's why he's got 2 of his 12 goals are 5-on-5, and 10 are on the power play when he is playing with Suzuki and Caulfield and Lane Hudson and guys who can set him up. So again, I shake my head a bit about how they haven't. You don't want to reward a guy when his attitude maybe isn't great right now. He's not working that hard, but when he was going really well and scoring on the power play, they never sort of gave him that chance. So if I'm Marty St. Louis, I'm giving him a chance to play with those 2 guys. As we said, the playoffs. He's got 1 more year left on his contract, $8.7 million. He's the highest paid player on the team. And again, they knew what they were getting when they got him. And you have to accept that and try and put him in the best position to succeed. And he's a goal scorer, and he needs to score goals. And he's not going to score a lot of goals playing with Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook this season.
I completely agree with everything you just said. And to further your point, if he's playing well in the tournament, then Martin St. Louis, you kind of force his hand, because I think after, it was funny, Jake Evans kind of said what the writing on the wall was. It felt like, the way he was being interviewed, it was like the Canadiens just got eliminated from a playoff series, and it was his last game ever, wearing the Canadian sweater, which very well could be. But the interesting thing is, had Laine been showing just a little more in those games, I think he would have gotten that chance.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right? Exactly. But he is who he is, right? That's it. And you're right. You're right. And it's a tough position, because you don't want to reward a guy who's not working that hard. And the reason Laine might not be working so hard is that he's frustrated. And he's not getting to play with the line mates that he wants. So that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right. But that's just the way he is. I was talking with a couple of Finnish journalists at the 4 Nations, and he was saying Laine has been on the number 1 line everywhere he's ever played. Even when he was a young teenager playing Finnish Elite League with men, he was on the top line. He's not this is probably the first time he's been on a 4th line for an extended period, apart from maybe 1 game when the coach was sort of punishing him or that. And he likes the spotlight, Laine, and he likes to score goals, and he gets down on himself when he's not scoring goals. And remember what he went in the NHLPA player assistance program last season for mental issues, and so mentally it might be getting to him that he's not getting the opportunity to play on the number 1 line with the Canadiens. So it's gonna be interesting to see how he does in the next 2 games. And coming back, what Marty St. Louis decides to do with him. And one of the reasons I think they might have put Jake Evans on the number 1 line that game also. Well, Slafkovsky had a brutal giveaway in the first period. Slafkovsky's been coasting out there too. He's looked like Patrick Laine some games while playing on the first line. But also there was a ton of scouts at the Bell Center, including for the 2nd straight game, they had 2 Vegas scouts there. And Vegas is one of the top teams in the NHL, but they have a horrible penalty kill. And Jake Evans would certainly help that, and so would Joel Armia help that. And I'm wondering if like Vegas might be looking at some kind of a deal where they get both of those guys. There's your 2 guys for your fourth line. You basically hopefully solve their PK situation. So they might have been showcasing Evans a little bit also in that game. And you're right. The way Evans was talking after the game, he was talking in the past tense about playing in Montreal. They've made Pierre LeBrun reported that both sides have put in what they want, and they're far apart. And Jake Evans is gonna. This is a life-changing contract for him, right? He's gonna be crazy not to test the market as a free agent and see what he can get. And the Canadiens would be crazy if that's the case to not trade him before the deadline.
Well, that's it. And you know what? Vegas, just as Vegas as an organization, they kind of go against the grain in terms of the traditional way of building a team. Obviously, different circumstances because of how they came into the league, but they like to toss around those picks. They love to toss around those picks. They love to spend those picks.
You guys Army and Evans both coming off expiring contracts. So at the offseason, you have the choice to either you re-sign him or you don't, and you let him go. So, and Army was on the fourth line last night for Finland. He had the least ice time of any player on the ice.
Took a pretty bad penalty too in the first.
Yeah, he did. He's played really well though with the Canadiens this season. Good for him. It looked like his career in the NHL was probably over last season when he got sent down to Laval twice. But again, for a team like Vegas, one of the best teams in the NHL, but really bad on the PK. Boy, that's a pretty quick way to fix your PK by adding those 2 guys. Evans and Army are ranked number 1 and 2 in the NHL in penalty killing ice time among forwards this season.
Now, I don't know how it is because you don't usually see. It's not really a tactical shift when a new player comes into the NHL. Like you saw when Mikko Rantanen got traded on Saturday night, he's in Carolina's lineup. It's not really much of a shift in terms of tactics. Now, imagine this, when you're playing defense on a PK, a team has a system. And when you bring a new guy in, 2 new guys in, or you adjust the new player to a new system, there can be a bit of an adjustment period. However, you're taking 2 guys who play together on the PK together. So that it's like you said, and almost like as if it's an instant fix. You could almost not even expect, this transition period to a new team because it's just, okay, first game, hey, you guys go out there, do what you do on the PK, player style, do how you did it in Montreal because what you were doing was working. And then once you get a few practices under your belt, you start teaching them, your way of doing things.
Or you alter your way of the PK to their way that they've been playing because it's been very
that's
effective.
it. So you don't really. So you don't even have a chemistry issue if you pull off a move like that. I think it would be brilliant.
And you got 2 guys who can play a regular shift on your fourth line. You can roll 4 lines, which is another key thing in the playoffs.
And just, you know what, Kent Hughes, just get one of the interns, put together a highlight tape of Armia in that Stanley Cup run, because that was just, on another level.
Well, that's the contract he got. That's why Mark Bergevin gave him the contract he got. That's right.
So let's shift over a little bit. So because listen, the Habs haven't played it's going to be a week on Sunday. So let's shift over and talk about the tournament that you and I were so wrong about. Right? We were wrong, and that's okay. And and you know what? We're happy to be wrong about it because man, this is just unbelievable hockey we're watching.
It really is, and we're not alone because there was a ton of tickets left for both of Canada's games at the Bell Center earlier in the week. I was looking, and now they're selling for crazy amounts of money for tomorrow night's game between Canada and the U.S. And I guess it's just because Pierre LeBrun had a good tweet today saying that this should have been we should have expected this just because it's been 8 years since these guys have played best and best, and you got guys like McDavid that they've never played best on best. And they're competitive guys. And I thought it would pick up once they got into the gold, it's not even a gold medal game. It's a game for a trophy that's going to be awarded once, right?
Yeah. With
the World Cup coming up after this. But I guess, one of the things I admire about hockey players is that they want to do this, right? They want to play in this, the World Baseball Classic or whatever they call it. A lot of guys back out on that. They don't want to play, right? But hockey players want to play. And it's hurt them when it's come to contract to CBA negotiations, because the owners know they want to play, and they know the union's going to break because these guys want to play, and the owners are always right. The owners have never lost a labor battle with the NHL players, and Major League Baseball owners have never won a labor battle with their players, right? Because their players are willing not to play. But I mean, the pace, the atmosphere at the game, the first game there with Team Canada was just fantastic, and the pace of that game and the overtime was insane with the amount of talent they had on the ice. They were going up and down the ice. It was funny because after the game, they asked Nathan McKinnon if they're playing 10 minutes 3-on-3 here, if you'd like to see that in the NHL. He went, no. He said, I was so exhausted at the end of that overtime. He said, I couldn't even see. And he's one of the best conditioned athletes in the NHL. But again, 10-minute overtime in the NHL wouldn't be at that pace, right? Like that was you're talking best players on the world on the ice. But the tournament, I wasn't that excited about it leading up to it. But when they had the first media availability Monday, and I walked into the Canadiens locker room in Brossard where Team Canada was, and I sort of looked and I went, there's Sidney Crosby, there's Drew Doughty, there's Mitch Marner, there's this guy. And I went, wow. Like, there's Connor McDavid. I was like, that's when I went, it sort of sunk in, like, this is pretty impressive. And after covering the practice the next day, then I started to get, I started to get excited about it. Just seeing these guys on the ice and just watching the practice and how fast the practice was. And Sidney Crosby, I mean, he is what you want a hockey player to be. I'm watching the practice. He had been hurt before, right? Hardest working guy on the ice in practice. The few times I've been able to watch Sidney Crosby practice during his career, whether Pittsburgh was in Montreal or I was in Pittsburgh covering the games, I just watch him in practice, and he practices the way Brendan Gallagher practices. So it's like taking Brendan Gallagher's work ethic and putting it in one of the most talented hockey players who's ever lived. Like, it's remarkable to watch them. Yesterday, after the game the other night, McKinnon and Crosby were the last two guys to be interviewed. They brought it, and it was well after midnight. Like, I got out of the Bell Center like 1:45 that night. The next morning, they have a practice, optional practice. Who are the first two guys on the ice? Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. His work ethic is unbelievable, and that's why he's still able to do what he does at age 37. It's we're talking about Patrick Laine before. It's sort of like an opposite when it comes to sort of the work ethic thing. But the game, I mean, tomorrow night, it's going to be insane at the Bell Center. It's really going to be, it'll be an incredible atmosphere. Excuse me, an incredible game. I wonder about Canada's chances. Binnington didn't look great in goal that first game. The Tkachuk brothers were running around last night like unbelievable. I don't know if Canada has the physicality to match those guys, but it's going to be, it should be just an outstanding hockey game.
You know what? Just quickly about Binnington is what I really liked. Obviously, the first and the last goal were not good. Yeah. I was watching SportsCenter after, and Jeff O'Neill was on, and he says, "I'm not a goaltending expert, but when pucks are going into the middle of the net, that's a problem. Yeah. That's a big problem to have." But by that same token, he was probably the reason why that game made it to overtime.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He made huge.
He's the reason also. Exactly at the second half of that third period and in the overtime period, he was just unbelievable. Matching who was it? Philip Gustafsson, save for save, because Gustafsson made some beauties also. So that was just really good. And I will say this, in terms of the intensity, because it felt like to me, you could give me your perspective, but it felt like to me, I was in the building as well on Wednesday night, and the first period, to me, it felt like they were hesitant to hit each other. Yep. It almost looked, I don't know if it was because of Team Canada was so good, or if it was just Sweden kind of didn't know if Canada was going to treat this like an all-star game, or if they're actually going to try. So Sweden was behind the 8 ball. And then in the second period, physicality started to pick up and the game got very, very fast.
That's a good way to look at it. It looked like Canada was going to roll over them, right? Sweden didn't get their first shot until 2 minutes left in the first period. And John Cooper mentioned after the game that part of that might have been the Mario Lemieux factor, with Lemieux coming in the locker room, reading out the lineup before the game, the big ovation he got before the game, and Crosby got. I think the Canadians are feeding off that adrenaline. And the Swedes looked like they're like, whoa, like it looked like it was going to be a blowout. Good for Sweden. They hung in, battled back, made a game of it. And that's part of why I'm sort of concerned about Canada against the U.S. I mean, I thought Adin Hill was going to be the starting goalie. I had to file a column for the Gazette early afternoon Tuesday. And at Monday's practice, we go into the Canadiens locker room, Brassard, and Adin Hill's sitting in Sam Montembeau's spot in the locker room. And Montembeau's beside him. And Binnington's across on the other side where Dobish or Cayden Primeau would sit. So I'm thinking, okay, the Canadiens equipment guys are setting up the equipment. Adin Hill's going to be the starting goalie. He's in the spot, and I talked with Montembeau about it, and Adin Hill. So this was also Carey Price's spot. Pretty good spot to have. So Tuesday morning, I write a whole column. Adin Hill's going to be the starting goalie, right? Ready for early afternoon deadline. They had an afternoon practice, Team Canada. I'm watching the practice, and I'm watching. It looks like Binnington's going to be the starting goalie. So, hold off on that column because I think I'm going to have to rewrite it. And sure enough, after the practice, they made it. They announced that Binnington was the number one goalie. One of the reasons Cooper said is he's a battler, and he battled in overtime. He made some huge saves. But it's going to be interesting. There's no doubt the U.S. has the advantage in goaltending in this game, right? There's no doubt about that whatsoever. It's going to be interesting to watch. It's been a long time since I've been this excited about watching a game.
Well, that's it. This is probably the most excited I've been about a Team Canada game since that 2010 final against the U.S. This is going to be one of those, or it's shaping up to be, just with the political sphere and what's going on in the world. This is shaping up to be a where were you when moment game for Canada and the US, because I remember vividly where I was. I was in my old friend Alex Miller's basement with his dad Neil. We were watching Team Canada versus Team US. I remember that day perfectly. His father asked me, he was a bit of a gambler. He said, hey, if you had to put money on this game, who are you putting money on? And I was 13 at the time. I had said, listen, Canada's got the top end guys, but the U.S. is really deep. I don't know. They had a Parise in his prime. Patrick Kane was a bright star. They had Ryan Miller in net. It was just an unbelievable team. And I said, I guess like my heart is telling me Canada, but my head's telling me U.S. So go U.S. And then when Canada scored that goal, when Crosby scored, it's just, I'd still watch it today, and it's still goosebumps every time. That's what tomorrow night will be.
And even more so because of the political thing. This has gone beyond hockey. I mean, last night there were there was some boos for the U.S. national anthem. And after the game, one of the Kachuk brothers was asked, I didn't like it. Well, you know what? As a Canadian, I don't like their Donald Trump threatening to take over our country and make us a 51st state. I don't like him having such a lack of respect for our country that he's calling our prime minister Governor Trudeau. And fans don't like that either. And Canadian players, the guys don't really want to talk about politics a lot when you ask them about that. But Canadians have a right to be pissed off right now. We really do. I mean, we've been friendly rivals, right? Even in hockey, it's been a fierce rivalry, but a friendly rivalry. I mean, all the NHL teams, they have we got Cole Caulfield and Lane Hudson, Americans playing with Nick Suzuki, playing with guys around the world. And for whatever reason, I don't want to get into politics on a sports podcast, but while Donald Trump is buddy now with Putin and putting the target on Canada with the tariffs and everything else, and Canadians are real. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of boos for the U.S. anthem.
Oh, it's going to be deafening. I think how you couldn't hear. Remember on Wednesday night how you couldn't hear the Canadian anthem singers. I got a feeling you're not going to be able to hear the American anthem singer.
It's going to be interesting. And this has got to, as I said, it's gone beyond hockey now, because this is when Canada used to play Russia. I'm old enough to remember the 72 series. I was only 9, but I remember it was more than hockey. It was us against them, right? It was their communist way of life against our way of life. It was more than hockey. But back then, these guys never played each other, right? The Russians stayed in Russia and the Canadians played in the NHL. They didn't even know each other. But now you got friends. Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews are best friends. Playing on opposite sides of the team, or not bad, well, really good friends. I don't know if they're best friends, but they're really close friends and teammates. So this is like bizarre. It's such a crazy situation. It's not a surprise with Donald Trump back in power, right? Everything seems to be crazy. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be interesting tomorrow, because I just hope the American players understand why, if there are lots of boos, why the boos are coming down, why Canadians are.
Yeah, it's not on them. It's not on them.
I mean, it's not a personal attack on these players. I mean, fans and if Cole Caulfield was on Team USA, what, Canadians fans in Montreal aren't going to like Cole Caulfield anymore? No, they love him. But it's gone beyond hockey now. It really has. And that's because of Donald Trump. I mean, there's one person to blame for that. It's gone beyond, and it's going to be interesting to see moving forward. You and I might be American citizens in a year or two if he gets his way with Wayne Gretzky as the governor of Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Wayne Gretzky, the guy leading the charge on that from the Canada side. Anyways, aside from that, the crowd is going to be bonkers. Yeah. It's going to be electricity that this Bell Center has probably never felt in this way of heatedness and rivalry. I'm interested to see what the level of physicality is going to be, because again, if you want to take it back to Canada versus Sweden, first period, it seemed like nobody was hitting anyone. And I even turned to my friends. I go, are they not allowed to hit in this game? Are they going to get called for a penalty? Then the second period, Rasmus Dahlin, he sat down Connor McDavid, sat him down hard. And then the physicality started to turn up. And then last night, Finland versus USA. Again, these are guys playing on the same teams. They're friends also. They went after it last night. I think JT Miller was the one who really set the tone, came out flying out of the gate on his opening shift. I forget who he hit, but he hit someone. And then right at the whistle, UC Saros covers the puck. Someone gets it. He gets in someone's face right away. I think we're going to see that tomorrow, but it's going to be interesting to the level, because at the end of the day, hockey players are hockey players, and you leave it all on the ice and you're going to feed off that crowd. Because that crowd is going to be insane.
Yeah, and the physicality will be hockey related. It's nothing to do with politics, man. Canadian guys who play for American teams, I'm sure, or imagine, a lot of them are happy Donald Trump got in, because they don't want to pay taxes, right?
Sure.
Rich people don't want to pay taxes, and with Trump won't tax rich people. But it's going to be more hockey. Like back in the 72 series, it was hatred. The Canadian players hated the Russians. Remember Bobby Clark, the two-handed swing and breaking Kharlamov's ankle. It was vicious. That tournament at the end got vicious. That was a war on ice. It really was. I think the fans in the stands for it will be more as I said, these guys are friends, right? They're Canadian players, teammates. But the physicality will be there just because this is a big game. And as Canadians, hockey's slipping away from us, right? The Americans are World Juniors. The scoring stars. The best goalie in the tournament is an American. It's not a Canadian. When was that? It used to be, going back to Carey Price can be your starting goalie, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're discussing this debate over who's Canada's starting goalie is going to be. So the American, that U.S. National Development Team program they have. We're seeing it how it's paying off now. I mean, the American time. I mean, just the population wise, America's so much bigger than Canada. More kids in the U.S. are playing hockey. More good athletes in the U.S. are playing hockey. They take all the best athletes at a young age and put them all in one place. Whereas in Canada, they're scattered all over the place playing on junior teams or whatever. And Canada losing to American hockey is going to become a regular thing. It just is. I mean, it's just a fact. Canada talks about the pride and the fierceness coming up, and the Americans, I think, will feed off the booing of the anthem tomorrow if there is.
Yes. If there's anybody that loves to be a villain, I could name you 4 of them right off the top of my head. Matthew Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk, Austin Matthews, JT Miller.
Yeah.
Bang. Those guys love being villains. And who loves being villains more in Montreal than Brady Tkachuk and Austin Matthews?
Yeah. Brady Tkachuk, who could have been a Canadian.
That's right. That's right.
A Canadian with an E. A Canadian's Montreal Canadian. Yeah. But watching the Tkachuks, I was talking to Barkov after the game, and he's got one Tkachuk brother as his teammate in Florida.
Yeah. And
I said, "What's it like playing against 2 of them?" And he sort of laughed. He said, "Well, one of them I know well, one of them I know a bit," but he was like, it's not fun.
They got a few screws loose.
Oh yeah.
With the way they play, but that's what if they're those players. It's imagine if Brendan Gallagher was a Boston Bruin. Montreal fans would absolutely despise this guy.
Yeah.
That's the type of player they are. When you have him, you love him. When you play against him, you absolutely hate him.
Yeah, and Brad Marchand getting cheered at the Bell Center the other night. That was Mitch Marner getting cheered at the Bell Center after scoring the winning goal. And so this tournament is that's what makes it great and what makes it sort of bizarre too, right? I mean, who would have ever thought Montreal fans cheering for Brad Marchand?
I think the part that makes it really weird is that it's still an NHL event. Like if this was 2028 Olympics are in Montreal, let's just say we got best on best hockey and or 2026, whatever it is. We got best on best hockey in Montreal, and it's under the Olympic symbols.
Yeah,
no question. It's not even a thought, because you've been the Canada or the NHL would take that Olympic break. You see the opening ceremonies. You're watching Team Canada play against Switzerland or whoever, and then it gets to Canada USA or a big game. Of course, you're going to cheer. But it's kind of just we're just a couple days removed from, or a couple weeks removed from the Toronto Maple Leafs coming back in that building and beating the Montreal Canadiens 7-3.
Yeah.
So it did feel a little weird.
Yeah, and I mean, if we get a Canada-US final, it's going to be in Boston, right?
Yeah.
And don't be surprised if Boston fans are going to boo Canada. That's what's happening now, right? That's what all this is stirred up. It's sad to see this happen, but it's the reality of the situation right now.
Right. But you know what? You know what I'm excited to see? Moving away from Canada-US. I'm excited to see U.S. versus Sweden, because I'm here for the drama of JT Miller versus Elias Pettersson. I want to see what was going on there. We're going to see if they're on the ice.
I hadn't even thought of that. I hadn't even really thought of that. That's really going to be interesting. It's like, you wonder what was going on there, right? I hadn't even thought of that. I should have, but I hadn't. Now I'm focusing on that tomorrow.
There you go. Because you know what? A friend of mine who I went to the game with, he turned to me, and as we were on the escalator on the way up to our seats, he says to me, he goes, "It didn't happen," but he goes, "I got a funny feeling that just William Nylander is just going to run Mitch Marner. He's just going to run him, and it's going to be a part of the game. You leave it all on the ice." But we all saw the images of last year's playoff run.
Yeah, I imagine they're buddies. I was just a frustration on the bench, right?
Exactly.
Buddies or teammates giving each other crap, but that one you mentioned, that's going to be a good angle to follow tomorrow.
It's going to be a little spicy, that one. I feel like I don't know. We'll see if there was any truth to it. It sure feels like there was some truth. To it.
You know what? Because I remember when the media in Vancouver first came out with those things, and people were saying, "Oh, it's the media making stuff up." The media making stuff up. Guys who are around the team on a regular basis find out stuff that's going on. You don't come out with that stuff, at least not legitimate news sources, which this was coming from, aren't making stuff up like some of the bogus sort of website or blogs out there. So where there's smoke, there's fire, and at the end, GM came out and admitted it. Their GM came out, these guys hate each other basically, and we got to trade.
If you want to compare and contrast situations, you take a look at what happened in Boston with Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak. That was fabrication, because you saw the way that Marchand came out and just completely shot it down. if it was an acting job, he's got a job waiting for him in Hollywood after his NHL career.
I mean, it might have been something like with Nylander and Marnie we were talking about before. They might have been arguing or whatever with each other, but not that happens, right? That you see on the bench.
Sure.
Guys are teammates giving other guys crap for not working hard or not doing whatever. But that's one thing. And that might have been what happened with Marchand and Pasek. But when it's personal and like that, that's a little different.
Anyways, it's just it's really great. The point, wrap this whole thing up. It's really great to see best on best hockey. Yeah. And you know what? When the NHL really hammers out a deal for this, what is it? The World Cup in 2028.
Yeah. Well, every 2 years we're gonna get this, and it's gonna be great.
So I hope that it's just more than 8 countries. I want to see, if you really want to see the best, you want to have these classic moments. The World Cup of, the soccer's World Cup.
Yeah.
That's not just, the Big 9 or the Big 10 football soccer countries. Yeah. That's 32 teams.
And at least now, we're not going to have this bogus, what was it, team under 20 or whatever they have.
Yeah, under 20, North America, under 23. North America,
they're not going to have any of that crap. It's going to be countries and that's it,
Yeah, which is awesome. It's I want to see a possibility of. First of all, I saw this tweet. I thought it was amazing. It said after seeing Canada. It was after the Canada versus Sweden game. Someone tweeted out, "I'll never forgive Gary Bettman for taking away from us, Team Canada versus Team China, and Canada rolling them over in Beijing, 30-0, which I thought was very funny." But
Connor McDavid, we were talking like he's never had this best on best, right? He's always dreamed what it would be like to play with Crosby, and Crosby's dreamed what it would be like to play with McKinnon, right? They're friends in that. So I think that's why we were talking last. You and I underestimated that factor in it also.
Yeah,
just how much these guys were looking to play together. And I'm sure, we mentioned last week, and I'm sure the owners are still watching the games like this. We've already seen one Canadian player.
Well, that's it.
Out of the tournament. There'll be more before this is over. There will be. I mean, it's just the way hockey is. Guys get injured all the time. And especially as the intensity is really going to pick up. And you're right. Like the first period of Canada-Sweden was like, okay, we were in the press box. Is somebody going to hit anybody?
Yeah, exactly.
5 minutes into the game, there hadn't been really any hits. It was just Canada flying around, and they had that power play goal. And then all of a sudden, something clicked. And I think it was Sweden, whatever happened in the first intermission, because, as I said, they didn't get their first shot on goal until 2 minutes left in the first period. But when they came up for the second period, it was like a different game. And then last night, when the U.S. came out for the third period, that was like a different game. Like they just steamrolled Finland. Like they came out with 3 goals in the first 3 minutes of the third period.
They flexed that's when they started to flex their muscles.
But tomorrow night, it's not going to be the second or third period where it gets going. It's going to be the second that puck drops. It's going to be that first shift could be epic.
Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those moments, it's going to be played on highlight reels for years to come in just the saga that is. It's a great, forget the politics.
It's a shame that politics.
It's Canada. It's Canada, shame, U.S. hockey.
It's a shame politics got into this, but it's totally understandable why. And it's not Canada's fault. It's not it's the president of the U.S. decided to attack Canada. And as Canadians, we're the nicest people in the world, right? Where everybody says, "Oh, we're sorry." But when you come at us, look at the way our hockey players play. When you come at us, we come back at you. And that's what we're seeing right now.
That's it. And you know what? To tie a bow on this podcast, let's wrap it up with a connection to the Habs, because Stu, I don't know if you thought through this lens, and I understand it's best on best, but after that game, I looked at my friends and I said, it is absolutely insanity that Colorado fans get to cheer for Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar for 82 games a year. Yeah. And then, Edmonton fans get to cheer for Connor McDavid for 82 games a year. And Pittsburgh fans have been getting to cheer for Sidney Crosby for...
And before that, they had Mario Lemieux. And before McDavid, the Oilers had Wayne Gretzky. And before I was saying to Herb Zurkowski in the press box after that game, I said, man, it's gonna be hard watching the Canadiens play after these games.
Whew. Well, that's it. It made me realize, yes, it's best on best, so it's it's a collection of players from everywhere. But man, are the Canadiens behind the 8 ball, and they got a lot of work to do.
The talent,
That's what it got me thinking. That's what it really got me thinking.
McKinnon in overtime almost looked like a kid playing shinny.
Yes.
I'm going to score now. Like he was he'd get the puck and just go through everybody. Like, and you're watching McDavid 2 strides and he's going full speed. Cale Makar, like you're watching these guys and going, wow, like this is another level. This is, I mean,
yeah.
When you think about it, I was thinking about like Nick Suzuki, I think could play at this.
Yeah,
point. He said,
I wasn't overly impressed.
He's a smart enough player, and I think Cole Caulfield could play for Team USA. But who else? Well,
that's it. Maybe one day Laine Hudson. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see. But that US blue line is. Yeah. Top of the class, they probably got save for Cale Makar, they got the 6th best defenseman in the tournament by far.
Yeah, and like you say, Makar and McKinnon. And that's sort of like I said when I was watching the practice on so it was Tuesday at the Bell Center, and that's when I sort of got excited about this tournament. So I was just watching these guys throw the puck around on the ice, and it's like McDavid and Crosby and this guy and that guy and that. Like Mark Stone's like an amazing hockey player, and he's a go play with Sid and
exactly.
Go play with Sid and McKinnon. I wrote a column about that earlier this week, and he said, "Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say I had a big smile on my face." But, you show up and by the way, you're playing with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. Oh yeah, and it's the second line. It's not even the first line with McDavid on the first line. I mean, the talent on the ice tomorrow night, Canada, US is going to be insane. But again, US has a better goalie.
Yeah. And you know what? There's the US is also six pairs deep, 3 pairs of defensemen deep.
Yeah.
And I don't know who I don't think that any forward was taken out today at practice because Cale Makar was sick. So Travis Konechny was playing.
Imagine if he's sick tomorrow.
So Travis Konechny was playing defense at practice.
Yeah.
But I was not overly impressed with Travis Konechny and Anthony Cirelli. Against Sweden, not my thing. I and who's your replacement is Sam Bennett's going to draw into the lineup. Sam Bennett's not exactly can't exactly hold a candle to the top end talent of Canada.
Yeah,
but he's a grinder, and that's what they're going to need tomorrow night to counter the Kachucks.
It'll be tough, and they'll feed off the crowd. I'm sure Team Canada, US might feed off the crowd a bit too. But if they do get to the championship game and it's in Boston, I mean the US crowd will be insane there too. But again, it's sad that we've gone so long without best on best hockey and been had to watch that garbage of an all-star thing every year. But this is just I should have realized it was going to be better than I thought it would be, but I never really thought it would be at this level already. Like we're not even in the semifinal final games already, and the level of play is just going through the roof.
It's really unbelievable, and it's a treat for all of us because best on best hockey is just really and nothing. And I'm a football guy. I think everyone who listens to this podcast, watches this podcast, you know I'm a football guy. But best on best hockey, nothing beats it.
And nothing. What? The only thing that beats it's best on best 3-on-3 hockey. That was insane. Like that was like even in the press box, no cheering in the press. We were like, whoa! Like it was nuts. It was like one play one way, one play the other way. Cale Makar flying this way. Nathan McKinnon taking the puck, saying, "I'm going to go through everybody and score," and then almost does. The saves. We're talking about the saves Bennington made, and that was as entertaining. It was 6 minutes of hockey as I've seen. And it's funny because the winning goal, Crosby carried the puck right into the offensive zone and then dropped it back to center
out of the blue.
He was so gassed that he barely got back in time to avoid being offside. Like when he saw that Marner took the puck and started taking off, Crosby went, "Oh man, I gotta get back." And it was close. He definitely wasn't offside.
Yeah,
but it shows you like these guys, and say Nathan McKinnon is one of the most best physically conditioned athletes I've ever seen in my life. And if he was so tired after 6 minutes of that 3-on-3 that he said he couldn't see, that's why he said, he was wondering why he looked off McDavid on a 2-on-1. He says, I couldn't see him. I was so tired. I couldn't even see.
It's funny. I've been there because it's funny. Literally last week, obviously I'm not to the level of Nathan McKinnon, but it's all relative. I went out for a run and it was so cold and my body was just working so hard. And, a friend of mine texted me, he goes, hey, I waved at you on the run and you didn't say anything to me. What, you ignore me now? I'm a piece of garbage. I go, I couldn't see. I was focusing on not dying. It's the exact same thing as McKinnon. I couldn't see. So hey, I hope the NHL looks at this tournament with the way the rules are and says, hey, this really worked. Maybe we should have 10 minutes of 3-on-3, or at the very least bump it up to 7.
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's what McKinnon said. That he said maybe 7. But again, the 3-on-3 in the NHL isn't going to be that fast. Level. Like, there'll still be great players on the ice the first shift, second shift, third shift. That it's not going to be as fast a pace. But I think it's something definitely worth looking into because 3-on-3 hockey is fantastic. It's
the NHL should be marketing the hell out of 3-on-3. And the other thing is, if Pierre LeBrun can finally get his wish of the 3-point system, because that's also at play in this tournament. So that's why I found it interesting. I think this is a little bit of a trial period for the NHL.
Without a doubt. And the thing is, that other point system, one of the things that they like about this point system now is that it keeps the playoff races tight. And the Canadiens are, right? You got so many teams still in it because of the loser point. So I don't know if they'll ever change that. But yeah, there's no doubt the NHL runs this tournament. The TV timeouts are a little longer, I think, too. The 10-minute 3-on-3. This is a time for the NHL to experiment with some things. They want to do. They got the ref cam thing. They've got camera guys on the ice, skating on the ice after play stops to get close-ups and stuff like that. So all of that is stuff that they're looking at, I'm sure, bringing in moving forward.
Well, Stu, we got, what is it, a week and a half or 2 more weeks of this? It's unbelievable. Really, really unbelievable. And, but only one more day in the Bell Center. So
yeah, that's it. Then they switch to Boston. And the Habs are back practicing in Brossard next Tuesday.
Okay, so there's still a long, long time to go before we get Montreal Canadiens hockey. But hey, we'll take best on best in the interim, right? Stu, enjoy the game tomorrow night. Take in the atmosphere. I can't wait to hear about it next week. And as always, have a fantastic weekend.
You too.
That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. Thank you all for joining us. Enjoy the hockey tomorrow night, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.